Everything that I enjoyed in life, everything that, I really poured my heart, sweat, and tears into, I no longer enjoy. Oh my gosh, like it was just spreading like wildfire. I don't want to get emotional right now. Birth control will be our generation's smoking. I said it. It's time to get loud. Welcome back to Loud Talk with Lavi, a podcast where we break down the walls of beauty standards one flaw at a time. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or whatever platform you're listening on, hi, how are you? And if you're watching on YouTube, which, by the way, we do post the video version of this podcast on the Loud Talk with Lavi YouTube channel. Hi, I'm waving to you. So definitely go subscribe to the Loud Talk channel if you haven't already and you don't know that we post visual versions of the episodes. Because I did have someone last week say to me like, oh, I didn't even know you had a channel with the video version of the podcast, and they were a frequent listener. So yeah, you can listen to this on any streaming platform. You can also check it on YouTube. So today we are doing a solo episode. If you guys are new to Loud Talk, I usually structure it where every other week I do a solo episode like this one today, and then the following week I have a guest on, and the guests have been so good this season. We're on season 2 right now. They've just been so good. I've had brand founders on, influencers, people in the industry, acne warriors, people who have overcome insecurity and issues with their self-worth. It's been an amazing season 2 so far, and today I'm really excited for this solo episode because I feel like these are my therapy sessions, my solo episodes. I really get to deep dive into something I'm passionate about, or just talk about something that maybe has been on my mind or bothering me. And today I think it's finally time to dive into my birth control story. My story with birth control, which I've touched on a little bit on social media here and there. I've talked about it on my YouTube and TikTok, kind of giving you guys a bit of background on it. But I'm like, you know what? I need to sit down and do a full podcast episode discussing my full journey on birth control, why I went on it, why I came off of it, how it affected me, and the effects and everything I wish I knew about birth control going into it and coming off of it as well. So this is my full experience. Now, today I actually had a different episode planned. I really wanted to talk about dealing with acne fluctuations because I think we've all been at different points if you have struggled with your skin where it gets so much better, and then boom, one day you wake up and it's like, oh my goodness, it's like 1 step forward, 3 steps back. So I wanted to do an episode on acne fluctuations because I think a lot of us experience that, especially with seasonal changes. But I'm like, you know what? Before that, I need to touch on my birth control story because that was a huge acne fluctuation in my life, and I'll get into why. But I was like, wait, I don't think I've done an episode on my birth control story. So I'm like, let's do that today. Let's talk about the full journey because there's a lot to it, and there's a lot that I wish I knew, and things that, if I had a podcast like this that touched on some of these topics that a lot of people don't talk about, maybe it would have helped me out. So that's what this whole podcast is for. We get a lot about topics that, sometimes other people like to keep quiet about, especially when it comes to like womanhood and birth control especially. So let's get right on into this. All right, so before we jump into this, I do know that a lot of you guys who listen to the show are not subscribed to the channel and do not follow us on Spotify or Apple. So please, before we jump into this, if you can follow this podcast, subscribe to the channel, give it a like if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other streaming service, make sure to also rate the podcast 5 stars. It actually helps the pages so much to help us grow and keep bringing new listeners into this podcast so that we can keep doing it each week. So I really, really appreciate your support there. All right, so let's get into my infamous to me, a little bit scarring, but a very, very important part of my journey, my birth control story. So I got on birth control when I was 18 years old. I feel very thankful that I did not get on it at a super young age. I know so many young women and girls who have been on birth control literally from the second they hit puberty. Like, they got their first period and like literally, a few periods in, they were put on birth control, or, really just early on in their life. I know some girls who have been on it since the age of like 13, 14. Like, it's actually insane how young you can get on birth control, and I want to dive into my thoughts on that, but I want to give you guys a story first, and then we'll dive into kind of my thoughts after going on it and my experience. But I got on it at 18 years old. It was my first year university. And I've struggled with acne kind of my whole life, which the reason I'm talking about acne with my birth control story is because that has a lot to do with this. I've struggled with acne my whole life. I started getting my first teenage breakouts when I was 13, 14, and then I experienced my first cystic hormonal breakouts when I was about 15, I want to say. I remember it like yesterday. It was a huge pimple on my cheek, right here, and it was huge. It was gigantic, and I was like, this is insane, but I was like, whatever, it will go away. It's just a random pimple. And from there, it just kept building and building. I had a lot of acne on my cheeks and on my chin. That's where a lot of it was, and it was very painful, cystic, huge spots. And yeah, it just kept progressing. Now, when I was 16, I would want to say I did get a bunch of laser treatments done, and I would say my acne went down. It really fluctuated out throughout the seasons. In the summer, my skin would be super clear. In the winter, my skin would be just a mess and a lot of breakouts. Now, with that being said, it was very targeted, in my cheeks at first, but then that went away, and then a lot of my acne was just around my chin. From everything I can remember, my acne was around my chin. And then from there, my skin cleared up quite a bit. High school, I had breakouts here and there, lots of stress breakouts, but it would never be too insane. At the time, I thought it was a lot of acne, and I thought I had bad skin, but I never wanted to admit it. That's a funny fact right there. I always told myself, oh, I don't have acne. I'm just it's just something I'm dealing with right now. I didn't want to be I am a girl who struggles with acne, whereas now I'm fully own up to it. I struggle with acne, and it's just a part of my life now. But anyways, so just a prefix, I did have acne growing up, more of the cystic nodular type acne that was painful under the skin. And of course I still got the tiny little breakouts here and there, but that was the main part of it. And then when I was 18, I went on hormonal birth control. I was on the pill, the 28 pill. The exact birth control I took was Lanisa 28. So I went to my doctor and got put on the pill. There was multiple reasons that I wanted to get on birth control. One, to prevent pregnancy, and two, to also help my skin out, because I had heard hey, birth control can actually help your skin. It can help with your cycle, your cramps, and all of that. I would say I get pretty moderately painful cramping, and I was struggling with that acne at the time too. So when I went to my doctor and kind of was inquiring about birth control, he did look at my skin. He's like, hey, we can actually put you on a birth control that will also help with your acne. So let's just do that all at once. And I had done some research into different birth control methods that I was, maybe wanting to go on. But because I had never been on anything before, it was very new, and I was very, very just trusting of my doctor and being hey, what do you recommend? The thing that kind of made me lean towards the pill was I'm everyone's on it. Everyone's on it, so it must be fine, right? If every girl I know is on the pill, it must not be that big of a deal, right? It should be fine. Wrong. I was very, very wrong, at least with my experience. So anyways, got on the pill at 18, the Lanisa 28, and I remember first month of being on it, I'm hey, all right, still getting my normal cycle. I did experience quite a bit of spotting, but nothing crazy. No crazy symptoms, none of that. And then I was on the pill for 2 years total. Now, I'd say the first year that I was on it, I didn't feel that different, honestly. I was you know what? It makes sense why people like this, you feel safe when it comes to preventing pregnancy. I did notice my skin was clearing up a little bit. It did not completely get rid of my acne. I have to say during my cycle, even though it was obviously a fake period, because birth control, if you don't know, birth control, the pill stops you from ovulating each month. So it stops the release of an egg, and basically you have a fake period, let's say, each month. So with that being said, when you're taking the pill, you're upping your estrogen levels. So that's why it can help a lot of people with acne, because what is it doing? It's balancing out your hormones synthetically. That's why they put a lot of people that have PCOS or other hormonal imbalances on birth control. Same with if you're cramping a lot. There is root issues behind this, and oftentimes you're put on birth control, which I'm gonna get into talking about why my opinions on that, which is a little maybe controversial. I have a lot to say there. But anyways, first year, like literally did not experience that much side effects. I still got acne here and there, but it wasn't anything like too extreme at all. Again, a lot around my mouth is where I'd usually experience my acne. And then we hit year 2 of being on the pill, and this is where everything started to go downhill. I have never in my life felt more out of body than when I was on birth control. And what I mean by this is days went on and I was getting more and more of like a emotional wreck. I'm a very emotional person to start, but when I was on birth control, it was like heightening my emotions to a point where I could not control them. I would cry at everything. I would get angry at everything. I was so moody this year that I feel like my family felt like they were dealing with a teenager, like literally a teenager. Everything made me mad. Everything made me cry. Like I would be high, like I had the highest highs and the lowest lows, and it was something that I could not control. And I just kept thinking like, I'm going through a mood. I don't know like what's going on, but I never really once sat to think, oh, my birth control is causing these insane mood fluctuations for me. So that was one thing. The second thing is I did start to notice like a bit of weight gain and more inflammation, but I mostly noticed this like towards the end and more when I got off of the birth control. So now what was the last straw for me? It was the fact that I was like depressed, like to put it lightly. And I've never really struggled with depression ever in my life. I'm a very like anxious person, but I would say for the most part, I've always been very positive spirited. Like anyone who knows me in my life, I'm a very positive person, glass half full, like always looking at the bright side of things. And even when I am anxious, it always drives me and motivates me to work. And the thing that made me, have that light bulb moment of like something is wrong with my body, something is affecting me, and kind of pinpointing it on my birth control was the fact that I was so unmotivated to work. Everything that I enjoyed in life, everything that, I really poured my heart, sweat, and tears into, I no longer enjoyed. Anyone who knows me in my life, I'm a very motivated, self-driven person. I'm a full-time student studying engineering and business and a dual degree, and I've always had this content creating career that I've done out of the love of my heart even before it was profitable. So at this point, I was doing TikTok and YouTube. I was posting consistently on YouTube every single week, and I was posting like daily on TikTok. And I mean, I love content creating. I put my soul into the art of creating content, especially when it came to makeup. I literally did not want to do it. I did not want to do school. I did not I felt so lost in my career. And to add on top of this, I was in my second year of a university, which was stressful in itself. And it was my first time ever in my life experiencing not like super high grades, to the point where I was like, who am I? Like, if I'm not getting these super high grades, like, who am I? Because I was just so used to that. So already I was having a bit of an identity crisis. This was also when COVID was in full effect. So I was studying fully remote online. So that took a big part on like my mental health as well, because I was alone all day, studying in my room, and that gets to a person, but my comfort zone, my place, my happy place was always content creating. And even in this moment, I did not enjoy content creating. So that's when I was like, something is up, because like I see no future for myself. And I mean that in terms of like my work and career. I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, am I going to get an internship? Am I going to get a job? Like I felt so lost, and that was very unlike me. So between all the mental breakdowns and crying and just feeling so down in every aspect of my life, I was like, that is it. I need to get off this drug, because all it is doing is affecting my body. And that's like what I had to pinpoint it on, because I'm like, why do I all of a sudden feel so different? What is going on? And at this point in my life, I was just at a place where I'm like, I don't really want to be on this birth control. I don't really feel the need to be on it. Like, let's just cut it out and see what happens. But I remember the day I finished the last pill in my pack and I threw the pack away, and I was like, yep, done. Like, I am done. I am not doing this anymore. I just felt like I was taking back my control, getting rid of the birth control, and just deciding I'm not doing this anymore. I finally felt like I'm gonna get my control, and it gave me a little bit of like that light at the end of the tunnel where I was like looking forward to how I was going to see changes in my day-to-day life moving forward, because I was just like, I just knew, when you have that gut feeling, I just knew in my gut this was the issue. And making that decision to just cut it cold turkey, I felt like I was getting my control back, and I was like, yep, from here on out, like, we are good. Everything will be better. And just like that placebo feeling, like the next day I almost woke up and I was like, okay, I feel like myself again, even though obviously the birth control hadn't gotten out of my system yet, but it was just that feeling of like, I'm done with this, So one thing I should have probably done differently in this scenario is talk to my doctor before coming off it. Now, I don't regret what I did, because, there could have been the possibility that my doctor advised me not to get off the birth control and maybe told me, no, don't worry, the birth control is not actually doing this. And, there may be other things that are affecting you. Let's just maybe switch birth controls. And maybe I would have gone down that path. So overall, I'm very grateful for the journey I had. And I think everything happens for a reason. So there's probably a reason why I, in my heart, just decided to cut it cold turkey and just like do that process myself. But I do wish that I might have done more research on like getting off of birth control and what that can, imply to the changes that you can experience, because I cut it cold turkey and I did not look back, and I was like, whatever happens, happens. And I didn't even like in that moment, I didn't think, oh, what side effects might I experience coming off it now that I've been on it for 2 years? Like that did not cross my mind in any way, shape, or form. So January of 2022, I got off of the birth control. Okay, so it has been almost 2 years that I have been off the birth control now, January 2024. So when I got off the birth control, my skin was the best it's ever been. Like, as I said, I experienced some acne while on the birth control for 2 years, but at this point, getting off the birth control, my skin was the best it's ever been. I think I had 2 tiny little breakouts on my chin with a little bit of scarring left over. Like my skin was radiating, it was glowy, it looked just like healthy and so good and very, very even. Like my skin looked good. At this point in my life, I was finishing up my school semester, moving on to an internship, and this is when I actually moved out into my first apartment. At this point, I had moved out and started my new job in May of 2022. So keep in mind of the timelines here, okay? So I was on the birth control January 2022, and my skin was the clearest it had ever been. And then fast forward 6 months later, June 2022, and my skin started just breaking out of nowhere. And again, I've been acne prone my whole life, but it was just like more breakouts than I was used to over the last like 2 years, where I wasn't really experiencing that much acne. I didn't really put the pieces together yet, guys. I was like, okay, I'm switching environments. I just finished my really, really stressful school semester. I just moved, which moving is so stressful for me. Oh my gosh. So that was a whole thing. And then I just started my first ever like big girl internship corporate engineering job. So there was a lot of change that happened during that May to June timeline. So I was like, you know what? It's fine. It's probably just like all these changes and my skin is freaking out. My skin always freaks out when I'm under stress and a lot of pressure. So all good. All right. Well, July rolls around and my skin just keeps breaking out. And when I'm telling you it keeps breaking out, my acne is spreading like wildfire. So it started off, around my chin, around my mouth, again, where I usually experience hormonal acne. And then I got this first spot on my forehead. I remember it so clearly. I got a first like cyst on my forehead. And from there, another cyst on my forehead, another cyst on my forehead. And then I started experiencing acne on my cheeks. A little one here, a bigger one here, a cyst here, a cyst there. And it was just spreading and spreading and spreading. By August of 2022, my face was covered in hormonal cystic acne. Again, January 2022, I was still on the birth control. My skin was perfectly clear. I got off of the birth control at the end of January 2022. And by August, my face was covered in acne everywhere. Like you could not see a spot on my skin that was clear. And it was insane because cysts literally spread all over my forehead, all over my temples. I had never in my life to this point experienced acne on my temples. This was a first, and it was huge painful cysts on my temples, all down the sides of my cheeks. I never experienced acne like on the sides of my face, and I know that's like a usual spot for hormonal acne. I never experienced it. I always had it around my mouth, and now the sides of my cheeks were covered in acne, deep cystic acne on both sides. All around my chin was covered, my cheeks were covered. Like, when I'm telling you there was not a spot on my face that didn't have acne, like, trust me. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the photos. I'm having photos put up on the screen. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, go check this out on YouTube, because I'll have all the photos. But oh my gosh, like, it was just spreading like wildfire. And I just remember in those times, and I don't want to get emotional right now, but every day from like June to August, every morning I would wake up and there would be a new pimple, a new cyst. And the worst part of that was feeling so out of control, because this is also when my social media started to build more of a following than it had, like more growth than it had before. And I think a lot of it had to do with me coming up on camera and my face being so alarmingly like inflamed with acne and so red that I think would attract a lot of views. And I don't think I was like really reading into that back then, but you know, it's alarming when you like open up your For You page and you see someone with a face full of acne, you know, like it makes you stop a little and watch the video. So I was documenting this whole journey, but I remember feeling so out of control in these times, because it's like, I know so much about skincare. I'm so versed in the skincare world. I've taken care of my skin for so long. And because I had finally cleared my acne up, or at least I felt like I had cleared my acne up, because I didn't really think the birth control like cleared my acne to that much. I thought it was just like my skin's finally calmed down, you know, I finally outgrew my acne. I'm done with the teenage acne. I'm now in my 20s, you know, like I'm gonna have clear skin now. So it just felt so defeating to wake up every single day with a new cyst on my face and not being able to control it, you know, having all the best skincare products. Like, I work as a content creator. I'm literally having the best of the best skincare products sent to my door, working with brands who have dealt with acne before, and I could not control these breakouts from just spreading like wildfire on my face. And yeah, by August 2022, my face was completely covered in acne. So that was a really, really difficult time. And I think I owe a lot to social media for helping me get through that, but also to myself. And again, it's part of my journey. I'm not, you know, sad that it happened anymore. I'm very grateful because it taught me so much. And I can do a whole episode on everything that acne has taught me and just this whole experience, because it pushed me through so much growth that I don't think I would have had without it. But during this time, it was hard. It was hard looking in the mirror every day and thinking, wow, I do not even recognize myself, because, and the worst part was looking back at photos where my skin was perfectly clear just 7-8 months ago. And now I don't recognize myself anymore because there's not a spot on my face that isn't covered with acne. And that was really hard. And around this time, like June, July, I was really like confused because the acne kept, you know, building. It wasn't just like stress breakouts anymore. I'm like, what is going on? So I thought, okay, maybe it's like my new environment, this apartment, the water, like what is going on? What is in the air? What is in the air, literally? And once like July, August hit, that's when it like hit me like a truck hit me. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's the birth control. Based on the knowledge I have, I know that birth control, it takes about 6 months for birth control to flush out of your body, which that in itself is crazy to me. Like the fact that it takes that long, and a lot of times girls have switched from one birth control to another and put on another, like it takes so long for a birth control to flush out of your body. So I knew it was about 6 months, and then I started putting the pieces together, and I'm like, okay, I've been off the birth control for about 8 months now. When did I start experiencing changes in my skin? At the 6-month mark that I had been off the birth control. So after 6 months of being on the birth control, that's when my skin started to freak out, the start of it. And then it started spreading like wildfire into like month 8. But I made that correlation, and I was like, that is it. Because I was looking into my apartment. I was looking into my diet. I had also started working out during that time. So I was having a lot of whey protein, which that, you know, probably contributed to even more acne. But I cut that out. You know, I'm like, okay, done with that. Like, done with this. I'm not eating dairy anymore. Like, I'm not doing that. but I'm like, I'm still breaking out like crazy. Like, it can't just be the whey protein that like destroyed my face like this. So I put the pieces together and I'm like, oh my goodness, it is the birth control. And let's talk about why. You know, I was feeding my body estrogen every single day through the birth control, and all of a sudden I took that out. So what happened? I have an imbalance. It's like, think of it like a ripple effect. You know, if you throw like a rock into a river, like a lake, what will happen? It'll like, you know, it'll go crazy. So my body was so used to this birth control every day, and when I cut it out cold turkey, it was like, whoa, what's going on here? And it freaked out. It completely threw my hormones off. And what happened in turn of that? My acne, you know, exploded all over my face. So August of 2022 was the worst my skin had ever been in my life. I also, looking back now at photos, I was just so inflamed. I was so inflamed. And, you know, I did have some weight gain during that time too that I experienced. Maybe, I don't even know how much weight gain, but like, you could just tell like my face, even if you look like now, like my videos now versus just last year, like my face held so much more like weight. And I don't even know if it was like necessarily fat, but my face was just like wider and puffy. Like, all I can describe my body as in my face was puffy, and my face has slimmed down so much since. And I have like, you know, I have like chubby cheeks and stuff, but like, it was crazy the amount of inflammation I was holding. My body was just so inflamed, and that also came out through my skin and with my acne. And I remember there were nights where I would just go to bed crying because of how much my skin hurt. I couldn't even sleep on my pillow, like on my side, because my skin was throbbing with pain. And to add to this, I was working a corporate engineering job, having to show up to the office with my skin just bright red and inflamed with acne everywhere, and every morning waking up and being like, okay, I'm just gonna apply a little tinted serum or tinted foundation to kind of help with, you know, the situation so that it's not drawing so much attention to me. This was a very like complex time. I had actually, you know, also gone on my first date with my boyfriend during this time when my acne was at its worst, which I've done a whole episode on dating with acne and how that was, but like, it was hard going through that because it was almost like I had to rediscover who I was, and I had to learn how to live with this new face that, yes, I've struggled with acne my whole life, but never to this extent. And during this period, I'm like, wow, I should have never complained about acne or even claimed that I had struggled with it before this time, because this is a whole nother level. Like, this got serious real quick. And I couldn't stop it. Like, I couldn't stop it. There was nothing that was making it better. And I went and talked to my doctor at this point, and the first thing that he said to me was, you need to get on Accutane. And I've done a full podcast on my thoughts on Accutane, but because of how I felt with the birth control, I was like, I am not going on Accutane. I'm sorry, but like, there's no way I'm going to willingly put myself back on birth control after how I felt the first time on it. And if you don't know, when you go on Accutane as a woman, you need to be on some form of birth control, or you need to take blood work, or you need to get blood work done like all the time. I think it's every few weeks, to just make sure that you're not pregnant, because you can absolutely, like, under no circumstance get pregnant on Accutane. It can cause a lot of birth defects, so it's like an absolute no. Like, you need to have a lot of like safeguards against pregnancy while you're on Accutane. So I told him that, like, I don't want to go on birth control again. I told him like I didn't have a good experience, and he was like, what do you mean, like you were like depressed? And I'm like, yeah, sure, like if we want to call it that. Like, I did not feel like myself on birth control. I'm not going back on this. And I was met with a lot of like, hey, no, like acne is not caused, because I was like, okay, let's do some hormone tests, let's do some you know, maybe like allergy tests, maybe it's a food I'm eating, I don't know, like let's get to the root cause of this. And he was like, no, it has nothing to do with your hormones. I'm like, but why would we put me on birth control to help with my acne if it has nothing to do with hormones? Like, that just blew me out of the water. And I think I could do a full podcast episode on just my thoughts on birth control and root causes and Accutane, which I've kind of gone through like my whole thoughts on Accutane, but I just don't think there's enough attention on looking into the root cause of acne, because so many people just want a band-aid solution, and a lot of health practitioners, in my opinion, from my personal experiences, just love to, you know, give the band-aid solution rather than deep diving into the root cause. So this was a very low point for me. I definitely left that appointment crying, and I was like, what the heck? Like, I feel so alone in this. I feel like I can't control this. I do not want to go on Accutane. Like, I felt so defeated. But one thing I knew damn straight was I would rather have this acne than go on Accutane or go on birth control and be miserable on it. And I actually got a comment today which kind of inspired me to finally talk about this, like, in a full podcast episode. But someone asked me, wait, like, I'm confused. Did you get acne when you were on birth control, when you got off of it? Like, what happened? And I was like, oh, this acne, this full breakout happened once I got off the birth control. And then they asked me, why did you get off the birth control if it was helping your skin and your skin was so clear? And to me, my mental state, my happiness is so much more important than how my skin looks. And that is a life lesson that I am so grateful for, that I have learned and got to experience as a journey, because that will always be my number one priority. And even when my skin was at its worst like this, I was still like, I would rather have acne this severe and look like this for the rest of my life if that means I do not have to go back on birth control or go back to taking a drug that I don't feel like is going to help my body. And everything I felt while I was on the birth control was a loss of control. And even though I couldn't control my acne, I could at least control my head, and I could control where, like, how I felt about it, if that makes sense. So that was a very clear decision in my mind, and that's why I'm bringing awareness to this topic in this episode too, is because I think so many people are willing to get those fast solutions or stay on birth control even if they don't feel good on it, because they're like scared about the acne. And yes, acne sucks, or whatever side effects that you might experience, but like, nothing is as important as your mental health and your happiness, and your thoughts. Like, it's really so much more important than how your skin looks. So that was a very clear decision in my mind, that I was not going to go on the birth control or on Accutane again. And from there, I kind of started my own natural hormone balancing journey. And there's a lot that I've changed, and I could probably do a full episode, but I'll give you guys the big recap. One thing that really, really helped me in this moment was nettle supplements. So if you don't know, nettle supplements are actually like a superhero supplement. They're used a lot for PCOS, hormonal imbalances, which can also help with acne. So I started taking nettle supplements every single day for about a month. This was in September, and the amount of change I saw in my skin was insane, like literally insane. The inflammation went down so much. I was seeing every single day more and more scarring, which I know you might be like, what? But like in a good way, because that just meant that my pimples were healing and it was just leaving behind scars, which now I have a ton of scarring. I have a ton of indentation, but I always say, hey, my scars don't hurt. They don't, make me cry on my pillow because of the pain I'm in, and they remind me of the journey I'm on and the strength I've built to overcome what I went through with my acne. So I could not care less about the scars in those moments. I was just like, wow, my skin is healing, and every single day I just saw more and more and more improvement in my skin, which was so cool to see. And it just felt like, okay, I am doing this. I started drinking different teas that are supposed to help with hormonal imbalance, like spearmint tea, nettle tea, also dandelion root tea, and then I started eating more at home, more whole foods, cutting out dairy more. I'm still not like 100% dairy free, but like I would say like 99% dairy free. I like have it once in a while, and I know that, it can trigger my acne a little bit, but I know that. I also stopped drinking completely. I'm sleeping a lot more consistently, going to bed around like 9:30, 10, waking up around 6:30 a.m. So just regulating a lot more and creating a lot more balance in my life, taking time to de-stress. Stress is a huge trigger for my acne personally. So just taking that time to de-stress. And the biggest thing is stressing about your acne causes more acne. That's always been the motto in my mind. So it's like removing that stress and just working on the self-love. And the biggest thing that I could probably say that's helped me along my journey is healing with love. You can't hate your skin into healing. I say that all the time. You need to heal with love and not hate. And learning to love my skin even at its worst was one of the best things I could have done for myself mentally, because it got me through that time. And I can deep dive into, that whole mental journey a lot more on different episodes, but I want to keep this episode more on just like my birth control journey. So at this point, I was just so happy that I had gotten off the birth control, and I was like, I'm figuring this out on my own. Again, I felt like that sense of control back with my body, which was an amazing, amazing experience. And I don't know if any of you follow Sophia Pinella on socials, but she talks a lot about her birth control story. I've actually had her on the pod. She was actually my second guest on Loud Talk with Lavi, and we went through her horrible, like horrific birth control story, and you guys should listen to that, because she had a very different experience from mine, but also just a very terrible experience as well. So definitely go listen to that. And she talks about just that empowerment that you feel when you get off of it. Like, it literally changes you as a person. And I think I finally started to feel like my womanly self and gain my like identity as like a grown woman once I was able to get off the birth control and just, learn so much about my body, my hormones, my cycle, all of that coming off of it. So ever since I've been off of it, I've been on natural cycles. So I take my temperature every morning. I do it through my Apple Watch, nice and easy, and I track my cycle that way. And honestly, just even these past few months, I've noticed how much more in tune I am with my cycle. Like, literally just this week, I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm just so tired today. I like checked how many hours I got of sleep, and I'm like, oh, I got like a good amount of sleep, but like, I'm just so tired. And I went to the gym, I did my lift, I was doing a pull day, so I was like doing rows, and I'm like, oh, I'm just so weak today. What is going on? And then I was like, wait, I don't feel all that right. And I check my natural cycles app, and it's like, oh, predicted that you start your period today. I was like, oh, there it is. Yeah. So it's like you just start to kind of know and feel like literally how your emotions and workload and your ability to work and push your body like changes throughout the month, which is so cool. And it's just so much more empowering. And like, I got like a few chin breakouts this week, and I'm like, that makes sense. Like, I usually break out around this time. So anyways, you just become a lot more in tune. And I'm very grateful for that journey. But now I want to dive into kind of my opinions on birth control. And I kind of feel that in a few years, 5 to 10 years, whatever it is, birth control will be our generation's smoking. I said it, and I know that there are so many women on birth control. And hey, if it works for you, if you feel your best self on birth control, that is so amazing. And I don't want to like make this come across the wrong way, because I think the power that birth control can give women and the control it can give them is amazing. I do think that's amazing, and I think that is really great. But my issue with birth control is I don't think there's enough research on the long-term health effects that it can have on a woman's body. Especially with how many different types of birth control there are, how many different brands, and how each one can affect you so differently. My second issue is, why are we willingly taking a pill every single day that comes with a side effects sheet that I could literally use as a blanket? Like, when I first took out that instruction pamphlet and I kept unfolding it, I'm like, okay, a few side effects, and then I'm like, oh, a few side effects, this thing is literally a carpet. That blew my mind. But I was like, again, everyone takes it. And that's the thing, when something becomes so normalized and it's like, well, if everyone's on this, like, it's fine, it's not going to affect me that much. That's where I think we need to just be more cautious and really just get in tune with our bodies and be like, is this the right thing for me? Because as I said, I have lots of friends who have been on birth control for years, and they're like, no, I don't experience any negative effects. But then I also ask myself, like, is it because you've been on it so long that you don't even know how your body would be or how your personality would be if you weren't on it? Like, there have been studies that show that, like, your mind can change, your personality can change when you're on birth control. There was like a study or something about how birth control can impact the type of men you like, the type of man you're attracted to. Like, isn't that a little insane? So, and that makes sense. It's affecting your hormones. You're synthetically pumping hormones into your body every single day for years on years for some women. And I think a lot of the fear is in, okay, so what will happen when I come off? And the scary part is like, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen if you come off of it. You don't know exactly how your body's going to react to that or the side effects you might have. But having these conversations and opening that up, like, it might be a lot of like scary for some of you who are thinking to get off of it, hearing my story and being like, well, I don't want a full face of acne, but it's like, I don't even know if that's going to happen to you. Maybe you don't even experience that. But for me, that was worth it. And I had to go through that journey. And yes, maybe I could have avoided a lot of that cystic acne and a lot of that scarring if I had maybe started some hormonal balancing supplements maybe beforehand. Like, I'm not sure, but I'm also not a doctor and I don't know all of that. But my journey happened how it did and I dealt with it accordingly. But I do think it's important for, every single woman to make that assessment and be like, hey, what is the most important thing for me? And should I look more into this? Is there more digging that I should do, or should I just blindly trust this? I think that's the issue, because a lot of us don't realize the damage that this can have on our bodies. And I think in some cases, birth control is very much needed. For some people, like with PCOS or endometriosis, like you almost need birth control, but that's also my issue. Like, why hasn't there been more research done into this? Why aren't we looking more into like cures for PCOS? Like, there's literally no treatment out there. It's all Band-Aid solutions. And I already know that if it were the other way around, I think a lot of you can agree with this, if it were the other way around and there was a birth control pill for men that had this many side effects, I can tell you right now, it would not be as pushed. And it's not, because look at it, like, look at what the options are out there, right? It's all kind of placed on the women, which that's a whole nother conversation that we can get kind of fueled up about. But I just don't think that enough awareness is brought into the possible impacts that birth control can have on the body. And the thing is too, relatively in like the time span of like humans, it's still a pretty like new concept. So we don't have even that much research on like, how can this affect, a woman that has been on birth control since the age of 13 all the way up into her 30s. Like, that is a very long time. If you've been on birth control for like 15, 17 years, like, how does that affect you? Like, how does that affect fertility? How does that affect your overall body health? How does that affect your hormones? Like, what does that affect? And do we even know like what needs to be done to get off of that, to make that process easier, right? So it's a very loaded question. I just don't think there's enough being done to open that discussion up and be like, okay, why isn't there this, and what can we do to do that? So it's very, very interesting, and I don't have all the answers. Obviously, these are just some of the questions that I put on to myself, because I'm like, what, like, why isn't there all of this out there, and why aren't there, maybe more awareness? Because what frustrates me is when you go to the doctor and you tell them you have some cramping, you tell them you deal with some acne, you tell them you have like a heavy flow, they're like, birth control, boom, here's your prescription, go get it. And that's what infuriates me here, because it's like, why isn't there more of a serious conversation? Like, it was so easy for me to get on birth control. So easy. I did not have to do any hormonal tests. I did not have to do any blood work. Like, it was so easy for me to get on birth control. At least I don't remember me having to do blood work. Maybe I did. I can't remember that, honestly. So let's just retract the statement. I cannot remember if I do any blood work, but let me know if you guys have. Like, I just feel like I've had a bunch of friends who have been on birth control since they were like 13, 14, 15. And like, it was like no questions asked almost. And I wish it wasn't just like, okay, here's the birth control, and by the way, you're gonna have these side effects. Like, that's the thing, is like, why is it normal for us to have all these side effects? And I know every medication is gonna come with side effects, but like, the amount of women that have told me on TikTok or on Instagram or on YouTube, where I've shared my birth control story, like, or bits and pieces of it, have told me I felt the same way. I had the same experience. Like, if there's this many of us that are feeling like shit on birth control or having these shit side effects, like, why isn't there more conversation about that? And like, I just felt like when I would talk to my doctor about the side effects I was experiencing, it was almost like, well, that's just what you signed up for. Like, that's just side effects, deal with it type thing, which that's what didn't sit right with me. And I was like, there is no way I am going back on this. And I've had so many conversations with people since who are like, yep, getting off birth control was the best decision that I ever made. And I'm not encouraging anyone with this episode to get off birth control. If it's working for you and you feel like that's the best decision for you, that is all great, and I'm very happy for you that you are not experiencing any of those negative side effects. But if you are someone who maybe is and has been considering going off birth control, do not take this also as my, as your sign to be like, yep, I'm done. But like, all I'm saying is just like, do your research and really just think, okay, is this something that a journey that I want to go on, and is this going to be worth it for me? For me, I can obviously say very much worth it for me. I do not regret going off birth control. I do not regret it one bit, even if it caused me all this acne, even if it, did all this. As I said, I think everything happens for a reason, and it pushed me down a very hard path that just brought all these life lessons, and I had a lot of self-growth and development that happened over that time. So I'm very grateful for that experience. And yeah, I think did I cover everything? I think so. But that was my experience with birth control, guys. I definitely am someone who now I'm like, I will never get on a synthetic birth control ever again. If I don't have to, I'm good with, my all natural methods, and I'm all good with my natural cycles and tracking my cycle. And honestly, it's made me learn so much more about my body and, my cycle and regulating my hormones. And I'm still on that journey. Like I haven't perfected anything. I'm still very much in the thick of it. But although it can feel very scary and like a really long, endless path of trying to, heal or target your acne or hormonal imbalance naturally, it's also like you're the one in control. Even if you like can't control your acne, you always have to remember acne is a sign that something's off. It's your body like crying for help. And although it was very frustrating to get all that acne and feel very out of control, it was just my body responding to getting off that birth control. And yes, I could have gotten on birth control and Accutane, and maybe the acne would have cleared up, but like it wouldn't really have solved the root issue. It would have just maybe like saved me from some scarring and all of that, but it probably could have cost me a ton more side effects, which I went into on my Accutane episode, because there's just so many side effects that come with Accutane. So either way, I'm still very secure in my decision to not have gotten Accutane. I do not regret that one bit. And I think that when you are dealing with acne, the best thing you can do for yourself, even though it may be really frustrating and feel like an endless journey, is just keep searching for that root cause. Start to do elimination, start to dig deep. What can you change? What can you control? And yeah, it might not be perfect. You like, when you deal with acne, you're never going to just have like perfectly clear skin with a breakout. Never again in your life, because life isn't perfect, and you can't always get perfect sleep, and you can't always not be stressed and always eat the best. Like it comes in waves, but it's like if you can mitigate it and bring it to a more controllable level like I have today, it's really a great journey. And I would rather deal with some breakouts every now and then, but feel in control of my body and not be on a synthetic like birth control than be on it and be like, oh, I'm still getting some breakouts here and there. You know what I mean? So it's all good. But I did want to sit down and share my birth control story with you guys. If you have had your own birth control story, I would love to hear about it. Let me know about it down below in the comments. Maybe I'll do more episodes on birth control. I can't believe I haven't really talked about this on the podcast yet. Maybe I'll reach out and get some of your stories and we can kind of go through them, because I think this is a conversation that needs to be a bit more open, and we need to discuss this because I think it's really important, and I think more awareness needs to be brought to this, or at least just more conversations, so that we can have like an open forum of like, okay, this is what could happen, this is what happened to me, this is what happened to me, and just more conversation, just getting more loud about this topic, I think would be really important. But thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Loud Talk with Lavi, guys. I really enjoyed this and sharing my story. If I missed anything, or if you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or you can send me a DM on Instagram or TikTok at Loud Talk with Lavi, or on my personal at Lavinia Rusanda, and I'll be sure to get back to you there. But thank you so much for watching this episode. Again, make sure to follow the show on Spotify and Apple. Hit the follow button, give us a 5-star rating, and if you're listening in on YouTube and watching, make sure to subscribe and like this video, and comment down below any questions you have, or just something you love about your skin today. Remember, guys, tell yourself something you love about your skin today, every single day, but especially today because it's podcast day. So I love you all so much. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Loud Talk with Lavi, and you will hear from me in the next episode. Bye, everyone.